age, I started riding in the mountains with my grandfather, who was working on the JB Ranch as a range rider. All of my education came out of the Hat Creek Valley. I was taught where our hunting grounds were at, and what time of year to go for them, for deer, and what time of year is to go looking for berries and to harvest our food for the winter. Um, so the valley really means a lot to me. The meat is hard to find now because of all the logging that's happening. The deer are having to move out into other areas. Um, Say, for example, we hunted for 2 or 3 weeks and never even saw a deer. See old tracks, and that's about it. I mean, it takes that long now to get something. I don't. I don't believe that the wildlife is going to come back the way it used to be, but I think we can keep it at a level that the people in the area can continue to go out and hunt and to provide the meat for their families. Um, Now the Hat Creek project goes ahead, and I don't think that it's going to do the game any good. It's going to only make things worse. The berries, the harvesting of different berries is going to get worse, and also the hunting is for sure going to get to a level where it's almost impossible to find something.
You better listen to the voices from the mountain, trying to tell you what you just might need to know. For the Empire's days are numbered if you're counting, and the people just get stronger blow by blow. You better listen when they talk about strip mining, gonna turn the rolling hills to acid clay. If you're preaching all about that silver lining, you'll be preaching till the hills are stripped away. You better listen to the cries of the dying miners, better feel the pain of the children and the wives. We gotta stand and fight together for survival, and that's bound to mean a change in all our lives.
What I saw in Colstrip, Montana was really I didn't know how to accept it, but I couldn't believe, besides the machinery that they were using to dig up the coal, because they removed so much soil at one time with one scoop. It was just, I couldn't even imagine something like that happening. Trying to picture that in Hat Creek is, for 35 years, this continuously happening 24 hours a day for 35 years is it's really a frightening thing to think about. Looking at the area, Colstrip surrounding was really flat. There was hardly any mountains for miles, and you had these two generating plants burning up all this coal and just shooting all of the um, pollution into the air. We visited the University of Montana, and we have contact down there, Clancy Gordon.
We first worked on coal-fired power plants in an area back in West Virginia and Maryland, and we were working in that area on the impacts of acid rains upon the coniferous trees that were grown on the Christmas tree plantations, and these were primarily the pines and firs that were grown there for commercial use of selling for Christmas trees. This acid rain caused a very slowness of growth, a abnormality of needles, and twisting of needles, and this type of thing.
Well, I would expect that there's going to be much more damage in Hat Creek than there is going to be in Colstrip. Number one, because of the high terrain. Number two, because of the lack of scrubbers that BC Hydro is proposing. Colstrip has an exceptionally good scrubbing system. It really removes a lot of the gaseous sulfur dioxide and it removes a lot of the particulate. That's not true for BC Hydro. research has been, they've been working on this since about 1952 on the phenomenon of acid rain transport. Most of that work has been done in Europe during the 50s and 60s. And now in the 70s, American scientists as well as Canadian scientists are very concerned about the transport of acid rains. And they've got it down pretty close. They say somewhere between 800 to 1,000 miles is how far that sulfur dioxide can be transported and converted before it is actually leached and washed out of the atmosphere. BC Hydro is not proposing something that will remove the gases, so that sulfur dioxide gas will come out in many hundreds of tons a day at that size of plant. And that's one of the more toxic gases to vegetation. It's also toxic to human beings at high concentrations.
At this mine, we mine one seam of coal. It's called the Rosebud seam. It averages about 23 feet in thickness. It's a medium-grade subbituminous coal. Averages about 8,600 BTUs, a warranted sulfur content of 0.8%. It's not the best coal in the world as far as heat output or energy output, but it is a very clean coal. These are two of our coal haulers. They're Euclid 120s. Carry 120 ton of coal in belly dump. We have 14 haulers. Our shop building. We're expanding this as the mine grows. That stockpile right now is about half full. When it's full, it will hold 95,000 tons of coal. It's divided into 3 zones with 5 feeders per zone to this underground conveyor. It's a weighing conveyor on an integrated grizzly system, and we'll convey the coal up to the top of the loadout. There's an automatic sampler. We sample each train as it goes out. So a train is constantly moving as it goes underneath. It never stops. We can load out at the rate of 4,000 tons per hour, or we can load a 10,000 ton train in 2.5 hours. We average, when we get the cars from BN, we average 4 train loads per day. We have been able to get as many as 8. What that amounts to is we can rotate that pile every 48 hours. Okay, so we've never had a fire. There's never been any spontaneous combustion or explosion. We work the pile with cats and keep it fed constantly into the conveying system.
When they originally go in, they say there'll be no problem whatsoever. But when the problem starts, what can the rancher really do about it? The basically thing, he can either fight the industry or sell out. And in general, it's easier for the rancher farmer to sell out than rather than fight through the courts the pollution problems that are being caused by that industry. So that's a typical problem in many areas where I have worked, where the damage occurs and therefore the company comes in and buys the property. And they acquire more and more property, and therefore they have more and more to pollute. They're allowed to pollute more and more areas. That's actually their own property right now. But it's a serious situation because it takes more and more agricultural lands out of production. And that's why we feel rather strongly about, the siting of power plants, aluminum plants, and so on, or large polluting sources in agriculture areas. They just simply shouldn't be there because, after all, agriculture is the backbone of all strong countries. And without the agriculture, you have nothing. It's very hard to reclaim land, especially in an arid region such as the Colstrip area. This is similar to the arid region around the Hat Creek area, where they plan on putting it. The area around Hat Creek and Colstrip are very similar as far as rainfall, as far as vegetation is concerned. In fact, most of the same species grow in both places. One of the more interesting aspects of the studies that have occurred out there on that reclamation land is they have put cattle back out on some of that land, as well as put same weight cattle, same age cattle, and so on, as well as putting them on the old native vegetation over there. And the animals actually gain less weight on that reclaimed land than they did out there on the native vegetation, which we found to be rather surprising.
From the past experience here, what would you say that we're looking toward? Like, as Indian people, what are we going to be faced with?
as far as the construction of any large-scale construction, power plants, dams, roads. I think most of the people that are operators, pipe fitters, welders, and stuff are brought in from the outside. I don't mean outside of the country, but outside of the area, and they're there to do a job and make money, and they move on. They don't really care too much or respect the Indian tradition, culture, and cultural values. You probably should prepare yourself to deal with some of the impacts that I mentioned, larger amount of students in your school, more demand for your hospital medical services, your community events, affairs are going to be impacted by outsiders wanting to attend your powwows, rodeos, whatever. And also, I think, you know, just generally, there's going to be probably more crime, more drugs, more everything. It's just going to be increased quite a bit.
There's no compromise with coal companies. You might as well face up to that. You compromise with a coal company and you might as well get rid of your reservation. They're going to get that coal as cheap as they can possibly get it, and they're going to give you the smallest piece of land. The government is going to give you as few privileges, as few as they can give, because you're a problem. What are we going to do about the Indian problem? What the hell are we going to do about it? Well, they want to get rid of them. You know, they don't want to burn us in ovens like they did the Jews. They don't want to kill us like they did in the 1850s. So they found a sophisticated way, take our resources. It took millions of years to put the coal in the ground and to develop that ecosystem that you have there. And when you rip it out of the ground in 1 year, or 2 years, or 10 years, then you're wiping out millions of years of history. And then what's going to take place from there on, nobody knows.
I always imagine a lot of times that there is going to be a lot of four-lane traffic, a lot of planes, a lot of noise in the area after this Hat Creek coal comes in, because they say it's going to be one of the biggest in the world. If the rivers are polluted and the watersheds are polluted, and then all bands, or all, not only Indian bands, not only Indian people, but the people that use the benefits of the rivers downstream from here would be affected too, because of the pollution that this plant would put out. You know, because everything, all the streams run downriver, and it'd probably go as far as the delta down in Vancouver. You can grow almost anything here if you can apply water to it, and you get a long seasonal summer, and I just got no reason to move anywhere else.
Would you move for BC Hydro?
No. No, BC Hydro would pretty well have to pick me up and move me, but I'll be back.
It's frightening to me. It's so difficult to compensate for large areas of land. You know, how do they compensate for it? There just isn't that much land that's similar to this. It's rather unique, this whole area here. The more heat units probably than anywhere else in Canada. We can grow things that just can't be grown in many other places, with the exception of the southern states. And, you know, there's a great future for this country agriculturally. We're hardly touching it now, but we're going to see more fruit and vegetables grown. And it isn't as if, you know, they could say, well, we can't grow it here now, we'll move north. It's a very limited area that you can grow these kind of crops. And we're going to run out of places to grow them in this country. And that's why I would find it difficult to know how they could compensate people for this land. It isn't easily replaced.
As far as the Hat Creek project goes now, what, you know, have you been approached by say BC Hydro and informed you on what their intentions are with the valley so far?
Well, not directly. We haven't been. It's and I'm not sure that even some of the ranchers in the area that's going to be directly affected are. I'm really not aware of that, but it's been brought to our attention through the media or word of mouth is how we have learned, and we are concerned now. We're concerned the effect that it's going to have on the environment, which so directly involves people in agriculture, both with livestock, which is the main form of agriculture in this area, plus we've got several commercial alfalfa growers, and from some of the information we've recently learned that this could be very detrimental to these alfalfa growers, and they're growing this hay for dairy producers in the Fraser Valley, and it's an extremely important part of agriculture. And more recently, we've had some soft fruit and vineyards that are being established on a rather large scale in the area, and I'm sure these people are going to be very concerned.
What are some of the concerns of the people about the Hat Creek coal mine?
Well, some of the concerns are, there are a number of concerns, and I can just name a couple of them, and one of them is in terms of the river and pollution. Pollution is a great factor that is affecting the river, and which is, really a detriment to our food source, which is fishing, salmon fishing. That is a really important source of food, and if something affects that, then it affects the people's food supply.
I noticed that there's sawmills in the area, and do a lot of the people work in sawmills? And
yes, I think that's probably one of the major employment areas for the Lowerton area. Specifically for our area in Bridge River there, we do have a logging operation, and if the young trees coming along are affected by the Hat Creek project and it burns off the foliage, then we wouldn't have this opportunity to develop the forest resource again if it really does affect it negatively. The negative effects far outweigh the positive effects, and especially for the people living within this area, within a radius of 50 miles in any given direction. I think people are really going to have to sit down and think about it.
I think we would be foolish to believe that the employment factors and things like that is going to be, it's going to be good for the community, whereas we don't think it is. But as far as the coal is concerned, with respect to generating the necessary energy that Canada needs, from what I understand, Canada isn't even going to benefit from it. All this energy is going down to the States. So where's the benefiting factors? So I think that the people would rather see a steady, stable economy over a period of time that tells the whole story, and Hat Creek just doesn't offer that.
At Construction Peak, there's going to be 2,000 people brought in, and what do you think the impact in the surrounding area is going to be, like Cache Creek, Ashcroft, Littlewood?
Yeah. I think that maybe when something like this happens, like a big project like this takes place in a small area such as Cache Creek and Littlewood and the surrounding communities, there's a great influx of people, so there's quick clearing of land and bearing of, cutting the trees and what have you to clear areas so they can put their houses on. And there's also the factor of
hunting, fishing, things like that. I think this would, deplete the overall stability of the way we live now.
What's going to be left in the area after 70 years, and what are we going to be faced with?
I guess when the Hat Creek project has had its way and they've disturbed the area as much as projects of this type do disturb the small communities. I think that probably when they leave, they'll probably leave a big hole in the ground, and we'll be left just with that, a big hole in the ground, and which was at one time probably good grazing land and good forestry land. Probably, an overall nice place to live, and it'll be just a ruined environment. And I think that the 70 years down the road after that, the people will still be suffering from its impact.
Has BC Hydro approached you in any way?
Yeah, they have interviewed the different ranchers, and on the start they haven't, and just in the last year they haven't bothered any. But on the very beginning they held a few meetings in here, but actually it never accomplished much. You might say they practically own the whole country. They do own this whole north end outside of just our place in here. And they've, I imagine they've got the largest percentage of the farming land west of the Thompson.
How many cattle do you have on the ranch?
We keep 200 head, just around 200 head.
You guys, last time I was up here, you mentioned something about when the guys were doing their, when they flew up in the air and they let out all of this smoke and they monitored it.
Yeah.
Do you guys see much of that, the happenings of that?
Oh, we can see it every day.
Yeah. See that, like over there is where they want to put their thermal plant up on top there, and they did wind tests up there, and most of the time they've had their wind going out of that way or out over towards the Bonaparte and down in there. But there's one day he just come straight up the valley, and he went straight up and it come right down along the mountains there, and then it just dropped and it just fell right down into the valley floor.
Back down to here again. So if it do that in 3 days at a time, well, it could half of the time it would be dropping right here in the valley.
Well, what do you think about BC Hydro wanting to relocate us somewhere?
I don't like it. I would have liked to see it go through on account of the other generation. I don't care about myself. I'm getting too damn young anyhow.
Yeah. How old are you, John?
91.
So you've worked up in the Hat Creek Valley here, in the upper Hat Creek, for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
What kind of work did you do up there?
I've done farm work and cowboying.
What do you think is going to happen, John? I noticed, spring runoff is starting to happen. What do you think is going to happen to the water?
It's not going to be fit for anything.
Do you think that maybe there might be a chance of having cattle in the future if this thing goes ahead? What do you think will happen?
No. If things go ahead, this coal mine goes ahead, the stock wouldn't be able to live here. There'd be nothing for them to eat, and the water wouldn't be fit for them to drink. And the same with the human beings. I guess you have the same feeling.
I sure do, John. I hate like hell to see this place go and be destroyed by something, you know. I've lived in this valley for, well, you know, since the beginning there. And
Yeah.
I'd like to live here or be able to come back here sometime and live again.
I think we could get across to the people that are in favor of the project if they sat down and listened to us and let us explain to them the meaning of say, the Hat Creek Valley and everything there. But I think to them the dollar is more important for them, and that's the only thing that they would like to see. More people, the more stores, the more you sell, the bigger you get, that type of thing. It would do them a lot of good, but it sure wouldn't do us any good. The prices of everything would go up, and we'd have quite a social impact as well as cultural. We won't have access to our mountains and to the hunting grounds and berries as we did, because a lot of the people, there's so many roads in the area, a lot of the people on weekends or whatever would be going in. They don't understand what's going to be left after 35 years, after all the coal has been taken out, and the people just leave. What are we going to have there? It's just maybe another, I guess you might be able to call it a ghost town.